Hi everybody, and welcome to another video. My name is Roger Peterson, and we're lucky here today to be joined by Chris Hill, Andres Rodriguez, and Alvaro Palma. And we're going to talk in this video today about escrow in Costa Rica and why escrow is an important component of your real estate transaction here in Costa Rica. And Chris is one of the pioneers in escrow services, not just in Costa Rica, but in Latin America. So Chris, Alvaro, Andres, thank you guys so much for joining us today. And Chris, I don't know if you want to start off with some words about what you do in your company.
Thank you for having us. Roger, we've known you for 20 plus years, and it's great to be here with you today. Escrow is a service that is essential in the real estate transaction. It's commonly used in the United States for escrow transactions. I think it's even more important on the international front,
right. Yeah.
For a number of reasons, which we can dig into throughout the interview.
Right, and Alvaro, you're running the operation in Costa Rica as well. I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you fit into the escrow company as well.
Well, about 21 years ago, I joined Stewart Title, the Latin America part, and I was part of the group that developed the escrow operations throughout Latin America and Mexico. And I ended up being the general manager of Stewart Title Guarantee de Mexico, and run that business for about 7 years. And that's how I got involved in escrow and title transactions over those days, all the way through now.
Yeah, I remember those days with Stewart was really the American company that came to Latin America and kind of started testing the water with escrow, because it's a concept that's not commonly used in Latin America as much. So, Andres, you're also an attorney and you work for the escrow.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I started working with actually with STLA in 2011 while I was in law school. So it was my second job in a business related law. I immediately fell in love with it. I just love, helping clients with all the escrow side, all the escrow part of the business. And it's actually pretty fun to do. And yeah, I love it. I've been doing escrow since 2011. As I mentioned, I just fell in love with it, and it's been my passion ever since.
So, Chris, based on your experience, why escrow? Why is escrow so important to protect buyers in the transaction? Why do you recommend that clients use escrow in purchasing real estate in Costa Rica?
The escrow service is extremely important because these transactions are cash.
Yeah.
And if it's not handled properly, there can be many bad outcomes. So in addition to that, we have other risks currently in the market. We've got cyber fraud is an issue.
Yeah.
So the transaction has to be handled properly. And if you have lawyers on both sides, they're representing one side or the other. Their interest by definition is the buyer or the seller. So that's where escrow comes in as a neutral third party with a professional platform that knows how to handle the funds and the transaction properly. And we follow the documents, we follow the instructions that we're providing.
Remember the Florida Bar sending us notices stating how hackers were hacking into closing attorneys' emails, and then redirecting wire transfers.
Oh, yes.
So, I saw that you guys have a pretty good system that makes sure that, or at least assists you in verifying that the emails are correct.
So we've got a fantastic platform. It's called Qualia, and Qualia basically it does away with email, and email is the biggest risk in the transaction.
Yeah,
that's where the attackers, the phishers, the bad actors are trying to penetrate your email. In fact, they'll change one letter. It'll be Roger Peterson, and you're getting emails back and forth from Roger Peterson. All of a sudden, Roger Peterson with 2 T's instead of 1. You don't notice it because you're getting emails from Roger, and Roger instructs you to send $500,000 to this bank account, and the money's gone.
Yeah.
So email is a weakness. A good app, a good technology platform, minimizes or eliminates to a great degree that risk. So that's what Qualia does. In addition to that, Qualia, or the software that we use, provides a much more professional environment. All of the documents are held in one place. It's timestamped. So in any case, without getting too deep into it, Qualia professionalizes the transaction and provides a much more secure platform.
Yeah, that's a great tool to have to keep minimize the risks. Okay, Andres, I have a question for you, and it's more related to the process of escrow. Since you're here operationally working on the Costa Rican end of the process, how does the setup process work in Costa Rica? A client comes to you. What do you do to start that process of opening that escrow account for that client?
Yeah, so we try to keep it as simple as possible, right? We know that simplicity works best on our work line. So what we do, or what we like to do, is having the attorneys or the brokers or realtors introduce us to the client, and then we will take it from there, right? Because it's easier, it keeps communication simple, straightforward. We will set up a Qualia account or open the orders through Qualia. We will include all the parties involved, the attorneys, the brokers, realtors, so we can get all the documents in there and basically all the information that we need from the parties. We will send the escrow agreement through Qualia to have it easier signature, right? Qualia has like a inside signature software, so it's easier for the parties. There's no need to print anymore. There's no need to, looking for a printer. Oh, I need to scan you this document back and send it over email. No, that's all part of the past. So we try to keep it as simple as possible. We will also, before the closing, at least 24 hours, 48 hours before the closing, we will call him by phone to confirm his wire transfer instructions so that we know that for sure we are sending the funds to the correct party. So it minimizes errors, minimizes situations that could put an escrow company at risk. Qualia makes it easier to manage all communication with the parties. The attorneys can be in touch with everybody. And as Chris was mentioning, it's timestamped, so there's no hiding.
That's an interesting point because, as Chris mentioned, the quality, and I've had the opportunity to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
the transaction we're working with you guys,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and very impressed with the fact that it keeps everything like in a square box.
Yeah.
And the clients, because in the past, you're right, the clients emailing tax returns, emailing bank statements, and I'm thinking, this is not good.
This is dangerous.
But with you guys, it's uploaded into this secure box,
Yep.
so it's not really floating around on the web. So
No.
I think I was very impressed with that quality and the structure. That
Yeah, it's like being all together on a table, exchanging documents at the same time. So yeah, it's wonderful, and
And just to add a note about Qualia, we call it an app or a technology. It's extremely easy to use. It's it's very user friendly. It's like logging into to a bank account, or it's very very user friendly. It's used widely in the United States. It's an industry leading app. So it's not something that we've created and that that's kind of a homemade solution. It's something that's used widely in the United States. And really, all due respect for the U.S., everything's standardized. Everything's kind of made for dummies.
Yeah, exactly. The volume that they move over there, they have to standardize.
Exactly. So we before we introduced Qualia to the markets here, we looked at it. We knew we know our business, and we vetted Qualia pretty carefully. And so we kind of knew what we had in our hands. Yeah. But since we've deployed it was over a year ago, it's been extremely well received. Yeah. And this not only in Costa Rica, but in other markets throughout the region. Yeah.
So I think that goes back to the question, why escrow? Security. That's the number one thing. It gives you security for the movement of your funds, security for the movement of your documents, and it also keeps the funds with a third party. In case there's a dispute, then the parties are not with the seller.
Yeah, we as a company try to abide by the escrow agreement. In some cases, there are some transactions. Of course, you have the purchase and sale agreement, but we as the escrow agent, we're not part of that purchase and sale agreement, so we cannot act on any instructions set on that agreement. So we draft an escrow agreement and include as many clauses that will make the life easier for everybody. As you were mentioning, we are a third party. We're holding funds for both the seller and the buyer. We're not representing one party. So we try to, again, act as neutral as we can.
I would lean more into the purchase sale agreement. Yeah. That's really where we want the terms and conditions to guide us. Right. So we're hoping that the lawyers or whoever's guiding the parties on the terms of that deal, that
it's clear.
They're clarifying, and that they're pre-seeing or previewing what might come. For example, the buyer pulling out or the seller pulling out. So the purchase sale agreement hopefully will give us the guidance. Yeah. Right. But there are those deals where the language is not clear, and we've been in this business 25 years or more. You have too. And at the end of the day, there are certain deals that it's just not clear, and we do have solutions. We have the ability to in the U.S. To interplead. It's a legal term for taking those funds to a court. That's a worst case scenario. Right. But most times when we kind of get to that point where the parties don't want to agree. And now this is kind of inside business talk, right? But buyers and sellers should be aware of it. There's no reason to get to this if you have crystal clear instructions to mitigate whatever these scenarios are.
And thank you for hammering that point home, because I always tell the viewers when they're considering Costa Rica real estate, number one, focus on that purchase agreement. Make sure it is as clear as possible every term, and always expect the best, but plan in that contract for the worst, and make sure the default clauses are very clear to what's going to happen with that. And also due diligence, right? I mean, due diligence is crucial in Costa Rica. So those two factors are very important when working with escrow, because as Chris and Andres has mentioned, they're a third party. It's going to be up to what that purchase agreement says to guide them in what they're going to do when there's a fight.
We don't want to make decisions.
Exactly.
We want to follow what the decisions have already made, what they tell us to do. Do the diligence to get as close to a perfect scenario as possible.
That's right. And another thing I find out too is that the deposits here tend to be bigger than I see in the States. I mean, we had a transaction. We had a transaction in Florida. I think it was like I can't remember, but the deposit was like $5,000. And then here it's 10%. So you're getting to deposits of $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. That's a big deposit to put into play.
It's a lot of money to put into play, especially for a non-reimbursable term. It's pretty crazy to even consider. But if again, the parties accept, we're the escrow company.
Right.
We're going to follow the conditions that are signed off on by the parties.
Right. So folks, I mean, from your standpoint for planning, obviously this is where you need to flush all this out, is in your purchase agreement when you discuss these transactions with your attorney, because it's not up to escrow to argue these terms for you. They're a third party. So it's going to be you and your attorney. The closing attorney is going to have to sit down with you and make sure that you understand all these terms and whether that deposit is going to be refundable, non-refundable, whatever term. But very important so that you don't get into situations that later you wish you hadn't agreed to.
The good news is, as Andres mentioned, these are few and far in between.
Yeah, exactly.
Most transactions, vast majority of transactions go just as planned.
That's a great plan. I mean, it's a great point. I've been doing this for 25 years, you guys as well, and I think I've seen maybe a handful in 25 years. So it's very rare that this happens. So, Alvaro, I think this is more down your alley. If we want to talk a little bit about this is the compliance, and we talk about clients. We talk to clients here, and they say, "Okay, we need to open escrow," and they think it's like in the U.S., right? So they're going to send you a little piece of paper, and the escrow's open, or the bank account's open in 30 minutes, and you're done.
Oh yeah.
And then when they start finding out, well, wait a minute, Costa Rica has just for a little bit more documents because of money laundering compliance. You want to talk a little bit about what the client should expect as far as what kind of documents they need to disclose and what they should expect to provide you when you're opening that escrow account?
Yes. Well, in Costa Rica, when funds are coming and they're sitting in a bank account in Costa Rica, banks and escrow companies are highly supervised by the SUGEF, which is the entity that supervises all financial transactions in the country. And they are super strict in terms of money laundering. They need to make sure that the funds that are arriving to the country are clean. So there is a list of requirements which are established by law that need to be requested to whoever is sending funds to Costa Rica in order to close a real estate transaction, which is in our case. So what we need is a form known as Know Your Client. So we have a lot of information that has to be filled up there. We need IDs of all the parties. And the most important, we need the source of the funds. Okay. So if the funds are coming from a previous sale in the States of real estate there, so we need the information about that sale. If funds are coming from your 401k plan, so we're going to need information about the 401k in order to see and to prove to the bank that the funds that they're receiving in their bank accounts are clean. So and the documents that have to be delivered to us in order to prove the source of the funds may change depending on the transaction that gave source of that funds. So you can expect when you're doing a transaction in Costa Rica that additional information could come and go depending on the source of the funds. So you have to be prepared to set every single thing that you have around the transaction that provide you the funds to acquire real estate in Costa Rica.
Right, yeah, but bottom line is, be prepared to provide the documentation, financial documentation of where that money came from that you're gonna use to buy in Costa Rica.
Yes.
But another great point with you guys too, is that you guys have escrow in the United States.
Oh, yes.
So, for example, if we have a client, a US seller with another US buyer,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't wanna bring the funds to Costa Rica.
Nope.
With your company, you guys offer the opportunity to be able to send the funds to a US account, and then you guys disperse in the US.
Yes.
So I like that concept. You want to talk? I don't know which one of you guys want to talk a little
We have what we call the best of the two worlds, because a buyer and seller are sitting in the US.
Yeah.
We can use the US company that we have, properly registered and constituted in the US and regulated in the US for transactions. So the escrow can be handled completely in the US, and funds do not have to come to Costa Rica. And if you need to send the funds to Costa Rica, we have also a company set up in Costa Rica, properly registered, properly supervised with all the requirements that are mandatory by law in Costa Rica to handle the funds here. So if the transaction is not affecting any Costa Rican bank accounts, everything can be handled in the US. If it's coming down here, we can handle it too, properly, of course, and with fully compliance of everything.
That's a great point that you have both structures. You have a dual structure because what happens is sometimes you use a U.S. escrow, but when the U.S. escrow sends money to somebody in Costa Rica, the local bank freezes those funds until you show them all the due diligence. So since you're already regulated here in Costa Rica, that just smooth that process out a little bit more.
Yes, and also we have the experience in the relations with the banks in order to provide any kind of information that they might need. For example, if we're receiving just bank statements from the client in the US, we're going to immediately say we need something else, because bank statements only prove that you have the money, but not the source of those funds.
Right.
So we need to go further in that regard.
Yeah.
So we know that if there's any kind of documentation that has to be prepared by a certified public accountant in Costa Rica in order to deliver it to the bank, because sometimes the information is coming in English, some banks do not accept documents in English, we have also the structure to provide that kind of service to our clients and help them with their transaction locally.
Oh, that's a great point. So you give the actual support staff services to be able to provide like a CPA certification or whatever they need to be
Yes.
able to tell their bank, look, we're compliant.
Yes,
That's
we
very
can
good.
help
Good
them with all that. Yeah, we don't provide that directly because of the independence that kind of service has to have, because all CPA work has to be completely independent from us.
Right.
But we have the ability to coordinate and get whatever information is needed for the bank on behalf of the client. So they don't have to go out and try to knock doors and look for something or for somebody that will help them. We can do it.
Perfect. That makes it a lot easier for the client.
Oh, yes.
To be able to comply.
Even if the transaction is in the US, we like to request certain documentation from clients so that in case that funds are coming to Costa Rica, let's say the attorney fees or transfer taxes and
Real estate
expenses,
commissions, yeah.
real estate commissions and everything, we have proper documentation to provide to the banks in case funds are received in Costa Rica, so that people does not get their accounts frozen, right? And then you get like a problem with the banks and 90 days to provide all the documentations. No, we already have it. And as Alvaro was saying, in case we need to provide you with any additional support, we have it. And we like to say, I mean, we are like a one-stop shop.
To talk a little bit about the timeline involved in escrow in a real estate transaction. So generally we have, once the purchase agreement is signed, then we refer it over to the escrow, then you guys open the escrow. Do you want to take the timeline, like from the minute that the attorney turns it over to escrow, and how long it takes to get the account open? And of course, the timeframes are dependent on the purchase agreement a lot, but I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we're opening the account in the United States, the escrow account usually takes minutes because, I mean, it's easier. We have two escrow accounts and they allow us to receive your initial deposit without like proper documentation while you get your documents, of course.
Right.
But it usually takes 30 minutes or so. We do it all through Qualia, as mentioned, so it's extremely easy. If we're having the escrow account open in Costa Rica, it's not as fast, but it's like usually takes a couple days because the documentation has to be more robust. But it's fairly quick. Now the time frame of the whole escrow account with the purchase, due diligence, and everything, it's usually a 30-day period. So it doesn't take that long. When we sign the deed, the transfer deed in Costa Rica, we usually take less than 30 minutes to disburse funds, so it's fairly quick. If we're disbursing in the United States, everybody gets their funds the same day.
So it's pretty efficient, and thanks for bringing that up as far as the explanation, because for most folks that you understand the local process is exactly as Andres mentioned. At the closing, the escrow company, the closing attorney, buyers and sellers are generally there, and you sign the disbursement statements generally ahead of time. So
Yep.
by the time you show up to that closing, you already know what the purchase agreement's going to, what the deed is
The
going to
deed,
say.
exactly.
You know what the disbursements are, and so hopefully that's where it goes really smooth, is when you have a team like this that's already prepared everything ahead of time. And then you show up, you sign all the documents, and then they disperse, like you said, in 30 minutes. Everybody has their money, and everybody walks away.
Yep.
Feliz.
Exactly.
Costa Rica. Pura
So,
vida.
Pura vida,
That's
pura
why
vida.
they're here.
And that's just we just did a close with a farm a few hours south.
Yeah.
And there were 3 or 4 real estate agents, a lawyer, the seller, and they signed at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Everybody had their money. Because several of the people had U.S. bank accounts. Everybody had their money by 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Within 60 minutes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So just to go back briefly to give a little bit of credit to Costa Rica and a little, the average transaction period could be a month,
Yeah.
but the reality is because Costa Rica has an outstanding registry system, outstanding professionals, and the escrow, whether it's us or a competing escrow, we're not as slow down in the process. You can close a transaction in Costa Rica in a week.
Yeah.
You can say, you can buy you can sign the PSA agreement on a Monday, and it can be closed on a Friday.
Oh, yes.
So Costa Rica is special in that regard. National registry is outstanding. It's the best I've seen anywhere in the region, and then outstanding professionals that know what they're doing, and title research is important, making sure that what you're buying is a good product, and then as we just said, the escrow is not going to slow you down. So maybe the average transaction flow is a month, but just a note to first-time American buyers, Costa Rica is an outstanding process and a very safe place to buy
That's a
property.
great point, because as you mentioned, I think most of that's in the purchase agreement, right? So
Yep.
if in the purchase agreement, you put that the closing's in a week, closing's in a week. You put that the purchase agreement is 30 days, which is more typical.
Yep.
30, 60 days is what we see as typical
Mhm.
for people to do their due diligence and things like
Yes.
that. But you can close in whatever time frame that the purchase agreement does, and as you mentioned,
There are
you
systems.
guys make it easy. So for you guys, the time frame is irrelevant. You guys
Exactly.
can
Oh,
have
yes.
No, we're going to move. When the clients tell us to move, we're going to move.
Yeah.
It's just, there are systemic things in Costa Rica that make you wait a month or two. Like, for example,
No.
other countries have systemic
Yeah.
structures that require you to get permits and permissions and authorizations and federal. So Costa Rica doesn't have most of that. So it's a much easier place to purchase property. Not to mention you're getting fee simple title here.
That's right.
You're actually
Yeah.
owning title as opposed to some kind of contractual thing or concession or lease.
And that's a great point, because you have a lot of experience in other countries in Latin America, and Costa Rica is one of the few places where Americans can come up with a passport and purchase
Oh, yes.
property. There's not that many places around the world where you can do that with just without having any type of residency or any type of status in the country. So I think
Yes.
it's very flexible. The next point that we can talk about is, people are going to ask us, well, hey, great, what does escrow cost? So you're going to have several components in a real estate transaction.
Mhm.
And the first one is the drafting of the purchase agreement. Then you're going to have the setting up the escrow and the closing costs, which is the cost of the transfer of the deed. So for escrow, what do you say is the typical cost for setting up an escrow? A lot of it depends on the amount of the transaction, I imagine.
Yeah, it does. It depends on the transaction. We have some brackets that you can fit in, but our average escrow fee is $800.
Okay.
So it's not, it's reasonable. We can move depending on the transaction size,
Yeah.
but that's definitely our average escrow fee,
Very,
$800.
very reasonable, and like I said, they have a sliding scale that depends on the amount of the transactions. So if you get transactions of $1.5 million up, it's going to
Exactly.
obviously bump it up
A notch. Yeah.
a notch.
Exactly.
Not
Exactly.
to toot our horn too much, but you're getting a lot of value for that $800.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
The security of the funds, that's everything. Where those funds are, they're secured until your lawyer indicates to us, the documents indicate to us that we can let the funds go.
Yeah.
But in that meantime, we've leveled the playing field. We've created a very professional, secure platform for these funds, and for $800 is pretty significant value.
Yeah, and a lot of hand holding.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I love hand holding. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're also, people are nervous when they're buying overseas. So as a closing attorney and then working with you guys on the escrow side, we do a lot of hand holding to, smooth the process out for the clients so they feel comfortable with what their adventure in an overseas market.
Yes.
They need it and deserve it.
Right.
We've been in this business for many years.
Yeah.
But I always keep in mind that, that client that comes to us, it's probably the first time they've ever done this.
Yeah.
And to keep that in mind is extremely important. And our team really does have that top of mind. And we're all about customer service, explaining to them, helping them understand that we're providing them security.
And I'm going to leave their contact information in the video description. Alianz Escrow. You'll have all their contact information. As you can see, they provide a great service to those of you considering purchasing here in Costa Rica and want to be sure that you have a company like this behind you, securing your funds and your transactions. So all this information will be left in the description. Well, on behalf of everybody out there watching, I really want to thank Chris, Alvaro, Andres. Thank you so much for coming in together and sharing all this valuable information that you're transmitting to our viewers here that may be interested in purchasing Costa Rica and maybe a little bit worried about the process. But as we mentioned throughout this interview, with a team like yourself behind them, it's going to make the transaction a lot more smoother in Costa Rica. Chris, I don't know if you want any closing statements.
No, thank you. Thank you, Roger. We appreciate very much the opportunity to talk to your viewers, and very much appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roger, also for having us here. And as usual, we have our door open for any questions or any information you may need about our services or the transactions in Costa Rica. We're here.
Thank you very much, your audience, everything. We are available 24/7. So yeah, we are our pleasure to assist you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And you're going to have the emails, or if you have any questions for these guys or myself, just drop us an email. We'd be glad to answer them for you.